Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of the Liberland Show. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell. Today we are joined by Daniel Dabek. Daniel is the Liberland Representative to Serbia. Daniel, thank you for joining us, and do you have any opening remarks for our listeners?
Hey, thanks, Adam. Just to everybody, live and let live, the motto of Liberland. Yes,
indeed. So we have the privilege of talking to you directly from Belgrade, Serbia today. That's correct?
That's right. That's where I spend, I'm a resident of Belgrade, and I spend 95% of my days in Belgrade.
How has it been for you being so close proximity-wise to Liberland proper, the physical country?
Yeah, in fact, I learned about Liberland through the press when I was in San Francisco, pioneering a cryptocurrency space. At the time, it didn't, while it was very significant to me, but it didn't affect me so personally because of geography. And I never imagined that I would find myself in Serbia. It was something that was always in the back of my mind, that I wanted to pursue something like living in Liberland. So I moved to Europe after I launched my my cryptocurrency called SafeX. And the reason I moved to Europe was because a huge gray cloud was coming out over cryptocurrency space. And so I decided to, so to speak, lay low in Europe and continue to develop things for cryptocurrency, but in a geographical area that would not make me feel like there's some kind of jeopardy to the innovation that I'm producing, a honest and sincere innovation. And so I wound up in Scotland, where I had some friends. And once I got to Europe, I made contact with more people who I knew who live in Europe through the internet and through the cryptocurrency community. And I wound up living in Serbia, in Belgrade. And I was there for approximately 6 or 7 months when there was a conference for cryptocurrency in Bucharest. And Bucharest is in Romania. So that's just a 1-hour flight away from Belgrade. So I decided it's something I can do. I can make it there. It's not a big impact to my life, and I can fly over to Romania for this conference. And what attracted me the most to the conference was there were so many people, very influential people and strong people, and I was lucky to be also a speaker on that conference. And there I met people like John McAfee, Brock Pierce, and of course, president of Liberland, Vit Jedlička. So there, I was mainly focused on my own things. I thought that while personally I believe that I'm fairly I'm good at what I do, however, I thought these were giants who I was honored to be standing next to, because just a year ago I was reading about Vit's successes in finding a land that can be claimed by the terra nullius clause. And so I couldn't imagine that I would start to participate in a substantial way in the formation of the nation itself. So then I returned to Belgrade, and I continued to do my own kind of approach for how to raise awareness about Liberland in Serbia, because I seen that Serbia is the closest, kindest nation towards Liberland. I felt that it's ultra important to have a good relations with Serbia, and I made it my business to do so.
Yeah, and we thank you for that, because I know, especially internally speaking, I've been able to see what you're doing there, and it's very impressive. I would definitely have to say keep up the good work, because you're really helping the country grow rapidly with all that you're doing. I want to highlight real quick one thing you mentioned, and we'll keep the topic of this conversation mostly on Liberland, but you did mention SafeX. So for anyone out there that is interested in looking at the project or business that you've put together, what's the best way to get more details on SafeX?
So SafeX has gone through, just to understand SafeX, you must understand its origins. It's something that I started in 2015, where I had sold 99% of a token, which is a representative token of a community that desires to produce a decentralized marketplace, one that lives upon the blockchain and is non-censorable and allows people to conduct commerce in the lowest friction environment, unlike using plain internet and cash means and wire transfer means. So a cryptocurrency marketplace. So 99% of this token were sold for about $50,000 And so, and from there, the community was formed and solutions were now sought after. And I've been the most active participant in the SafeX community, considering, I am the founder and kind of ideology rested with me. And so about a year and a half ago, through some diligence and good partnerships, we started to expand the development team beyond just myself. I am a software engineer, but there's no way that I can conduct business, build an entire infrastructure in addition to the applications people use to interact with that infrastructure. It's a very big calling. After increase in personal wealth and increase in partnerships, we managed to get people who can build and help in kind of a full-time capacity. And so we are now on the brink of completing the marketplace. And that is why learning about SafeX is a little bit scarce, because content around SafeX is not prevalent at this moment. However, if you go to the website safex.io, there's good amount of information there. But in the past year, the focus has been only on technology rather than communicating the idea. And so that will begin to change over the next months as we roll out the marketplace that is decentralized upon the blockchain. So, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. We'll have to take a look into SafeX. My other question that your response earlier was prompted by your response earlier. You mentioned you were in San Francisco. I think before our call, you told me that you were originally born in New Jersey. You're in Belgrade. You mentioned Scotland. Tell us your geographical background. Where are you from? Where do you, I guess you officially reside in Belgrade now, but tell us where you're from.
Yeah. So I was born in New Jersey, just in a small town just outside of New York City. I went to college at Fordham for about 6 weeks. And I was very much exposed to financial markets with the dot-com boom and things like this. So that was where my interest lied. And for example, I joined the debate team, and the main perk of being on the debate team was printing things. And the thing that I would print is the chairman of the banks, Fed or ECB. I would just read those 600-page reports and see what is important to people there. And I spent quite a few years doing that. So when I got into college, I was already knowing I want to specialize in economic, active economics, not just in theory, and mainly how people actually interact with money and how they transmit value. So I took up work on Wall Street as a proprietary trader, where then I moved on to computer engineering. And seeing that I wanted to focus more on computer engineering, I moved to San Francisco, where this is pretty much the mecca of software engineering. And coincidentally, the most active community for crypto at that time when I moved there in 2013 was in San Francisco. And so it was a very visceral experience when there's only about 200,000 people engaged in cryptocurrency, and you're among the leaders of just a couple thousand people who are most active in that. So I would say I'm very grateful to the fact that I was there, and I'm very grateful to the community of San Francisco for existing and being able to be a part of that. So, legal funding for opinions and things like that, those are very expensive. So unlike my peers at that time, they have, venture capital that they were soliciting for a couple of years. I wasn't really going in that direction. I'm more rebellious, and I wanted to do something new and innovative rather than go for incumbent strategies like finding people who, one source of funding. I wanted to build community, because cryptocurrency is much different than traditional models. It would be either find a legal opinion in the States, which would far exceed the budget that I had, or just move and casually relax and build from afar. And so that's the route I did. So I moved to Scotland and stayed with some friends, and then moved to Belgrade, do some consulting, and just constantly be active in crypto space by building and identifying good partners.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it sounds like through everything that you've been able to experience in this industry, you've had plenty of unique experiences. So in regards to those unique experiences, was there any one in particular that tied in with your involvement with Liberland?
Absolutely. So just the foundation of SafeX was, this is a community of people, everyone chipping in their own view on things into creating, in this case, a decentralized marketplace. Liberland is, in my view, very similar in that you have this piece of land that has this exemption and can be owned by this founder, in this case, VIT. And so now you have opportunity to establish a tokenized governance. And so that is something extraordinary and something that must be fostered into real existence.
And when exactly did you begin your journey with Liberland, and how have you seen the country transform since you began working with Liberland?
In 2017, in February, that's when I became formally acquainted with VIT.
Happy 2-year anniversary to you.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't become officially given a title until October 2017. And so before that time, I had been, was it 2000? No, it was 2018. So it was in October 2018 when I was assigned a diplomatic passport and I was given a role for Liberland to Serbia representative. But beforehand, the saying, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Mm-hmm. And so I very much stand by being an active person and doing what I say. And even if it takes a little bit longer sometimes, I always come out with what I said I wanted to do beforehand. And I'm often careful in evaluating what am I going to say or that I will do before I do it. So I found myself, it was very easy for me to be active because it's something that I very much care about and I believe in. It's also, in that case, easier to tell other people about what it is that I'm doing, what are my values. And if people find that they identify likewise, they would follow or they would support in that case. I would say, I guess the question was the transformation. So the amount of cohesion in the team among founders, people who are active, is ever increasing. Of course, there is this very intense pushback from Croatian government. However, at times I feel like so first of all, I believe that the Croatian blockade is completely illegal in the first place, and it is a deprivation of human rights. However, Vit is a very optimistic person. He's a very positive mind person. He says things like, I would quote him saying, well, at least the Croatians are protecting the land.
Right.
And so when you think about that, it gives us plenty of time to mobilize and group up and get serious and make a huge impact when we do take over this property that belongs to Liberlandians. You see? Yeah, I can see that this goes to the courts and Liberland prevails. And in the whole wake of those proceedings, I can imagine that Liberlandians prepare very thoroughly for the settlement that can be sustained into the future, including governance and, let's say, hospitality, right? Accommodation, the ability to live and thrive.
Yeah, and that draws me to another question that I like to ask on here, which is, where do you see Liberland within the next 3 to 5 years? So granted everything goes smoothly, granted that the blockade is lifted and we're able to begin establishing a physical presence. Outside of that, where do you see the country in 3 to 5 years?
For sure. There's one thing that I wanted to mention is advice to people who are Liberlandian, who may listen to this and who aspire to be Liberlandian. And the point is that if you are a Liberlandian citizen at this day, then you must be identifying yourself as a Liberlandian because that is your heritage. Others who wish to become Liberlandian consider how the fervor that people have for becoming an American, the same fervor must be brought towards being a Liberlandian. You see? So otherwise, there is no sense for having Liberlandian if there aren't a people who identify themselves as Liberlandian. That is my very heart-to-heart advice to any aspiring Liberlandians. There's 500,000 individuals in the world who aspired and asked for citizenship. However, you cannot just start to let anybody and everybody become citizens of a nation. Obviously, there's a due process like anywhere. If you do feel this kind of national pride towards Liberland, you must express it, whether you're a citizen or not. And so in the next 3 to 5 years, I can see that the Liberlandian government is established. It's usable in a tokenized format. And there is a plan for settlement that is in execution, that is being taken care of. The blockade is lifted and the settlement is under construction. And there are people full-time living and there are people visiting on a regular basis. Yeah, it would be a beautiful thing to have a bridge between Serbia and into Liberland, so that you can simply drive over and get there. You see, one of the most important things, most distinctive things between building a company and a country is a country has different kinds of needs than a company. And also there's a different approach to financing a country, because a country is a place where you live and a place where you identify yourself, whereas a company is simply there to make profits, simply there to create a product people want and to promote and to grow. And so it's much smaller and less, I don't want to diminish a company by saying it's not important, but a country is by far more, you're not investing in a country for return on investment in a financial perspective. You invest in a country for other things like common ideals and a sovereignty and jurisdiction that allows you to do those things that you identify with that are correct, you see? So,
yeah. Well said. And again, I like how you highlighted identifying as a Liberlandian. That's so huge. And personally, that's a little bit of a paradigm shift, even for myself. It's just something I've never really thought about until you just brought it to our attention. So yeah, anyone out there, to re-emphasize what Daniel said, if you are a Liberlandian, be a Liberlandian.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Daniel, what's the best way for anyone listening to follow up with you or get in touch with you if they have any questions?
Well, I have like a forum. It's safe.exchange. If you just type into the search engine safe.exchange, you can discuss, there's like a other topics category and you can communicate there, and I'm very active on that forum.
Great.
I think that forums are exceptional ways to keep in touch, because you can always reference later and you could always respond at your ease.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's fine. And I think you're the first guest that we've had to provide that medium of communication. So I look forward to seeing what engagement we generate through it. Do you have any closing remarks or final words you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
I think that Liberland idea, the cryptocurrency world, is something that the next 100 years is going to be all about this. So much like how the United States became an economic power force in the 1900s, that the wheels started turning and things just kind of took care of themselves, so to speak, with the impetus of its people. So the same thing, I can see how Liberland is becoming, from this frontier nation into a highly advanced and productive group of people. Absolutely. A true pioneer country, especially in regards to technology. And we've got individuals like you behind the projects, which makes it even more exciting. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this has been episode 21 of the Liberland Show. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell. We were joined today by Daniel Dabek, the Liberland Representative to Serbia. Daniel, thanks again for coming on the show. Thanks, Adam. We will catch you in the next episode.